Hi there, welcome to the MPC Beats Academy. Now in this masterclass, we're going to be covering how to make a lo-fi track from the ground upwards using MPC Beats. So we're going to be walking through 7 different episodes of how you can start your track from the ground upwards. So by the time you've watched this entire series, you'll have a really good understanding of how to apply these techniques to your own tracks. So without further ado, let's dive straight in and start making some lo-fi beats.
Now, in this series of videos, we're going to be creating a lo-fi beat from the ground upwards. So we're going to be covering the entire process using MPC Beats. Now, I'm using my MPK Mini Mark II for this tutorial, but you can use any MIDI controller. If you don't have this particular MIDI controller, we can go to our factory list and then you can select the controller that you do have, and then you can load that MIDI map, and then you'll have all the functionality to control MPC Beats from your controller. So to start our project, what we're going to do is start with a brand new sequence. So we'll go up to our inspector, and here under sequence, this is where you can name your beat. Now I'm calling this making a lo-fi R&B beat. Now I'm going to change it from 4 bars to 8 bars. So that means we got an 8-bar sequence to work with. And then track 1, we're under our drum mode, and I've named my track drums. And now I'm going to select my drum kit, which is called lo-fi kit. So now I can play my kit directly on my pads as we're using the MPK Mark II mapping. Now the sounds that I'm using for this masterclass, some of the sounds are from the brand new Arab Trap Soul expansion pack. I've got some sounds from Drums That Knock, some kicks and snares, and I've got a few melodic samples from Splice. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's go to our sample pool. And let's play some of the melodic samples that we're going to work with, and let's see what we've got. So we're going to take this sample and I'm going to put this onto an audio track. So MIDI is where we do all of our drums. Audio, I tend to put my melodics. So I'm going to drag my melodic sample onto my audio track. Let's name this. So we're going to call this melodic loop. Now we've named that. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to turn on warp and then punch in the original tempo of the loop. And this will allow us to add any tempo that we want because we're using real-time time stretching and pitch shifting. And MPC Beats has the Elastic Pro time stretching algorithm. So it's going to be very high quality. So let's change our tempo to 135. And now let's play back our loop. Now let's expand our grid so I can see all 8 bars. Let's use our MPK Mini as this is pre-assigned so I can access all of my zooms. Now as we're on MIDI, this is where we're going to record our drums on track 1. But if you want to go back to audio, press the audio tab and we can now see our melodic. Now if you want to edit the melodic, MPC Beats comes with a range of tools to allow you to chop, fade in, fade out, reverse, pitch shift our audio and much more. So let's start programming our drums. So we'll go to our MIDI tab. Then on our MPK Mini, because this is instantly mapped, we're going to turn on our quantize. Then on encoder 2, this controls our time division. So this means our quantize will snap to 1/16 on our grid. So now we're all set up. We'll turn on our metronome under tools and we'll go to enable. And this will now only come on when we hit our record. So let's hit record. Wait for our bar to start from 1. Now that we've finished the first part of our idea, let's turn off record and let's turn off our metronome. Now, what I want to add is some triplets to my hi-hats, which are very popular in trap. So let's turn on note repeat, and this enables us to use the pads to trigger triplets. So we're going to change our time division to 132 triplet. So now when we trigger our pad, it will trigger the triplet. Now let's hit record overdub, so we don't record over what we've already recorded. And let's play in our parts. So now that we've recorded our hi-hats, let's turn our overdub record off and let's add some additional textures. So we're going to put our quantize back to 1/16 and then turn off our note repeat. And now let's play our parts. It's always good to play percussion sounds on the offbeat because it adds more movement over your beat. Now to access the top level of our samples on our 16 pads, let's go to Bank B on our MPK Mini, and now we've got samples 9 to 16. So let's add our long reverb clap. This gives like an off ambience. Now on the top pads, I've got some different types of vocal samples. So let's add like a percussion vocal. So this is working with the groove. Now let's take off overdub. Let me hear some of these other ones. Right, let's add that. Whenever you're adding vocal textures to lo-fi, it's always good to add a lot of reverb and filtering, taking off a lot of the high end to the vocal so it feels very distant. Now let's add our last melodic, which is like a sidechain pumping loop that adds a lot of texture behind the beat. Now a very popular effect on hi-hats is automating the pitch of your hi-hats up and down. Now MPC Beats gives us tools so we can automate any feature that we want. So underneath our drum grid, we're going to pull up our grid, which is where our automation is, and you can see our velocity levels. Now I'm going to hide my drum pads so we've got a bigger workspace. Now I'm going to use my arrow and I'm going to select my pad 3, which is my hats. Then my parameter is tuning. Now I can take my pencil tool and I can draw in the automation. So we're going to be going up and down the pitch. And there, you can hear the pitch, how it's detuned. And again, you can just keep drawing these in until you find the type of feel that you're looking for on your beat. Now, once you're happy with your tuning, we could add some panning to our hi-hat as well to give it a bit more space. So let's go down to our select arrow, pad 03, and this time we'll go to mixer and panning. And now we can just draw in the automation of our panning from left to right. Now, if you're using headphones or studio monitors, you can hear the hi-hats moving from left to right. So let's close this window down. So on our MPK Mini, let's expand our view, because what I want to do now is I want to move some of our drum sounds off the grid so they don't feel so tight and quantized. So make sure we've got quantize switched off. We go to our clap and we're going to pull our clap back so it comes in a little bit early. So as we pull the whole clap, see already you can hear it just pushing. And then we're going to push our hi-hats forward. So they are slightly off as well. These will feel a little bit more humanized. On our next lesson, we're going to add some tape stop and lo-fi effects to our melodic. See you next time. Hi there, welcome to episode 2 of Making a Lo-Fi Beat at the Beats Academy. So I'm going to be adding some lo-fi textures to our melodic using some real cool techniques to kind of really grunge up the sound. And then we're going to add some lo-fi tape stop. So down at the bottom of our UI, you can see these little tabs. Now these are our mixer tabs. This means that we can see the mixer levels of our pads. And then next to that, we can see the mixer levels of our entire program. That means our whole drum kit. And then we've got the actual track level. Now, what I want to do is I want to change our workspace to advanced because we need some advanced features. So now you can see inserts on our channel strip, and you can see time correction quantizers now popped up, and you can see metronome, and we have some new menus where our home button is. We have like sample, loop in, and a whole bunch of other new features. But the features that I want access to are the inserts, which you can see now, which were graded out. This is where we can add our effects. So each pad and each track, you can add up to 4 effects. So let's click, and we're first going to start off by adding the MPC 3000 emulation to our drums. This will give our drums a little knock, roughly around about 120 Hertz. So now that we've added that, we now go over to our audio melodic, and we're going to add some lo-fi grunge to that. So let's click on audio, and there's our melodic loop. Now we'll go over to our inserts, and the first thing I'm going to add is a filter. So we're going to take some of the high end off. So we're going to put a low pass filter. So let's play our melodic. And then we take the cutoff frequency, and we can bring that down to about 2 kilohertz. So everything above 2 up to 20K has now disappeared. So let's add lo-fi. Now this will allow us to change our bit rate to really grunge up our sound. So let's take it down to 12-bit, add some noise and some anti-aliasing, and we'll add a bit of clip distortion. Very popular effect in lo-fi. And then we can balance the mix levels between the effect and the original sample so it doesn't overpower the sound. Now let's go to our third effect. Under modulation, we do pitch shifter. And I'm going to re-pitch the whole sample down a whole octave. So now if we increase our mix level, you can hear a real low version of the melodic. Now the reason why we've pitched it down -12, which is a whole octave, so it regains its original key. Otherwise, this effect would be out of key. Now the last effect is one of the most popular and one of my favorites, which is tape stop. So under harmonic, go to XY effects, and let's open this up, and under the menu presets, go down to tape stop. So what we need to do now is automate this. So let's make our workspace bigger. Let's hide our pads. Now under our automation section, let's select the insert effect, which is tape stop and enable. Now using our pencil tool, we can now draw in when the tape stop is enabled. So let's go to the end of the melodic, and let's draw in a tape stop effect here. There you go, comes straight in. Automation on MPC Beats is a real fast way to add so many different effects over your beats. And you can graphically see everything as well, which really helps the process. So you can fine tune the way that you draw these in till you find the type of effect that is right for your beat. Now let's draw another one in. Probably roughly around about bar 4 to 5. And then let's increase it so it enables the effect. So now when it comes round, we'll hear it again. There we go. And we'll just keep the last one at the end of the 8th bar. Now listen to it with our beat. So we've made a lot of improvements adding these effects to our beat. Now I'm going to add a master filter over our beat, which will affect the whole track. So we can now make the whole track lo-fi. But if we only want to affect our drums, let's take our air filter and let's drag it across to our drums insert. So this is on the program tab at the bottom with the 4 squares. And now it's affecting the drums. The melodic is keeping its original sound and effect. So this is a great way that we can add a lot of movement to our beat to give it some diversity. So on our next lesson, we're going to add some chords over our track. See you next time. Hi there. So in this lesson, we're going to start adding some instruments over our beat. So we've got our foundation already. So what we're going to do is go over to our track inspector and we're going to select track 2. Now let's name this track. Let's call this Roads. So just double click, let's type in Roads. And then below this is our track type. So we're going to change this to plugin. And we're going to be using the plugin called Electric. Now Electric comes with MPC Beats, so you'll have that in your list. Now let's go to Program Edit and let's hide our pads. And now we're on our program editor, so we can now see the UI of Electric. Now let's go to our presets in our inspector and let's go down to Tremolo and Soft Tines Trem. That's the preset that we're using. Now we can play this from our MPK Mini. Now you can hear the sound has got a lot of texture that really fits the mood. Now, if you want to use chords mode, you could follow one of our Beats Academy tutorials of how to use chords and scales, but I'm going to be playing the chords directly from our MPK Mini. So you can play the kind of chords that you want over the beat. Now, you don't have to have music theory to play chords. I play a lot of my chords by ear, so I find different types of chord shapes until I find something that fits over the style of beat. So now we've got some ideas, let's hit record. Now let's jump up the octave. We can add some sparkle over the top. This adds a shimmer to the sound. So now that we've recorded our chord progression, this adds a lot more life to the track. So on our next lesson, let's add a bass line directly over our beat. Welcome back to the MPC Beats Academy. So in this lesson, we're going to start adding our bass line. Now let's go to track 3. And we're using a key group sample this time. So what I've done, inside the Arab Music expansion pack, there was a loop. It was a bass loop. And what I've done, I've taken one snippet of the bass loop and we've put that sample into a key group. So it's now expanded across our keys. So let's double click the sample where we took the sound from. Now you find a section in the sample which just has a clear note. So here we go. This gives me one single sound of the bass. Now I've got my start and end point in green and red. And then we go to key group, open up our program edit. Now this will give us our editing features in key group mode. We turn our polyphony to mono because it's a bass. Now we got one sound. And our note range is going to be from -C2 to G8, which is the full length of a keyboard. Then we select the sample. And that's all you have to do. So now when we go back to our sound, we can play this on the keyboard and it will play the entire range of the keys. And you can do this with any type of instrument. So let's play our track and let's see if we can work out a bass line that goes along. Let's put on our quantize. We're on 1/16. And now that we've found a bass line that complements the beat, we can record this straight down. So let's hit record. Now with bass lines, you always want to make sure that they're working with the kick and the melody. Now you can hear that this bass line really brings the beat to life. Once we've recorded our bass line, we can actually go in and use our piano roll to edit the notes. So we can select the notes, move them up to different notes. Now that we've recorded our bass line, on our next lesson, we're going to add the additional instruments over the top of our beat. See you next time. Hit overdub. So now that we've recorded our pads, let's go to our piano roll. Now we can see all of our notes. So there's a note I want to change here. So let's just move our workspace so we can see all of our grid. And with our mouse, let's just pick up that note and move it up to an A. Now on this sound, I want to add a gated effect so it pumps to the beat. So let's go to Air Effects. We're going to go to Dynamics and I'm going to select Air Pumper. So let's open up the plugin and then let's change the depth so it's more subtle. And let's solo this. So you can hear it's added a lot of rhythm over our beat. So let's go to track 5 and we're going to add some shimmer with some bell sounds over the top that gives our beat some high end. And we're playing this like a crescendo. So we're going to turn off our quantize so it doesn't snap to the grid. Now if you don't like what you played, use the undo feature or redo. So if you made a mistake, we can just go again. And we never have to stop our beat. So now that we've added our bell shimmer to our track, let's go to track 6 and we'll add some strings just to give it our final touch. Let's put quantize on for this so it snaps to our grid. And let's hit record overdub. Now on our next lesson, we're going to arrange our beat into a song structure. So hope you enjoyed this lesson and see you next time. the MPC Beats Academy. Now in this lesson, we're going to look at structuring our beat into more of a song. This means that if you want to send it to some top line writers, then you've got it in more of a structure so they can work with the arrangement. So there's a number of ways we can do this, but I'm going to show you a more linear approach in the drum editor. So we're going to go over to edit and we're going to go down to sequence and we're going to double the length from 8 to 16. And then we're going to do this again. So let's just zoom out and see our grid. And we're going to double the length again to 32. Now you can keep doing this up to 64, 128 bars, whatever suits your requirements on your beat. But let's work with 32 at the moment. And what I want to do is erase the parts that I don't need from my tracks. So on my beat, track 1, I don't want my beat to come in until bar 5. Then on my Rhodes, I'm going to bring this in on bar 9. So my intro will have no Rhodes. And then I'm going to take my Rhodes out from bar 17 for 8 bars, which will be kind of like a drop down for maybe a verse melody. So let's just select those notes there and we'll just erase those. And now let's go to track 3 and we'll look at our bass line. So I don't really want my bass line to come into bar 9. So let's remove all of the notes. Now that's done. Let's head over to track 4. We're going to go to our pads. So let's do the same. Now I don't really want my pads to come in until bar 17. So that gives us the intro and the first verse. So let's remove those. And then we'll go down to our bell pluck sound. Now let's remove those from the intro. And then we'll go down to our strings. Now I want the strings to come in near the kind of the back end of the beat. So let's go up to roughly about bar 29. Then we'll go to our second pluck. And again, let's remove these from the intro and from the verses. And this is going to come in at the same point as the strings. So once we've done all of our parts, I'm going to go back to our drums, track 1. And I want to automate the filter. So when my drums come in, I want them to feel very lo-fi. So we hit record and play, and let's open up our filter plugin. Let's drop the cutoff down. So now it's roughly around about 300 Hertz, and we'll bring this up. And you can see it's recording the automation on our timeline. Turn off record, and that's recorded. So it's a very easy process to record automation inside MPC Beats. So let's record another pass. I'm going to bring down the drums again, open the filter. Now this could be the opening of a verse. Bring them in. So now that we've got our track arranged into a song, on our next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can export your beat and send it to a friend or to a songwriter or share it online. Hi there. Welcome to the MPC Beats Academy. So in this final lesson, I'm going to show you how you can export your beat and then you can email it, send it to a friend, to a songwriter and finish your production. So let's go to export audio mixdown. Now this gives us some different types of files. So we could do it as a WAV, but we're going to use MP3, bitrate 320. So it's going to be a small file for us to send. And if we want to send stems to, say, a mix engineer, we could select separate programs, WAV file, 32 float, and now we can send the maximum quality and all of our individual tracks will now be stems, which is a great way if you want someone else to mix your track. But we want to send our track out as a stereo file. So let's go stereo output, MP3, and press export. So now it's going to render out our file. So let's give our track a name. And press save. Now once your track has finished rendering, we will have our track as an MP3. So now let's play this straight back.
Thanks for watching this masterclass of how we can make lo-fi beats. So if you want more information about MPC and MPC Beats software, head over to our academy and you can watch all of the other tutorial videos that we have so you can improve your production skills today. See you next time.